Well, hello everybody. This is Lorianne Smith. It's One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the continuation. We're just looking at Survivor to Thriver manual from the ASCA Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and More Center program. And it's a free PDF download if you want to download it. They don't mind people using it. They want people, like adult survivors of child abuse, to use it because it's very helpful. And so they offer it for free. You can, or you can read it right from their website, and that is www.ascasupport.org. And I put the link in the chat, and if you just want to read it as a web page, you can just read it. And or if you want to download it, you can download it. If you want an actual hard copy, like a physical copy, they charge for that because they have to pay for the collating and to ship it out and all that. But you're welcome to read it for free. And that's what we're looking at. And I thought it might be helpful for people, if you're just starting out on your healing journey. What is this Survivor to Thriver manual and what it's all about, sort of thing. And it's helpful for me because I'm still working on things, and I use it in my walk with on my healing journey. So I found it very helpful. So that's what we're looking at, and we're kind of about halfway through now. And you want to do a safety check, like if you're sensitive really to the topics of abuse and violence and all that sort of stuff, you might want to just change the channel because that's what we're talking about. You wouldn't be hurting my feelings. And if you're a survivor who's just starting out on your healing journey, you want to do the safety first check. Like, just check to make sure how you're feeling today. Are you strong enough to be listening to material about child abuse and adult repercussions? What adult survivors go through. And if you're not strong enough, you just feel like this might bother you, set you back in your healing journey, cause you to have a miserable day, cause you to hurt yourself or somebody else, then you need to just turn this off and go watch something else. Because you need to be safe, right? We all do. And so as survivors of abuse, so you need to make sure this is not going to trigger you, and just have you go backward and have in your healing journey and have a horrible day. That'd be terrible. So just watch this if you're strong enough to be watching. Otherwise, if you're not, turn it off or go watch something else, because these topics are very sensitive, and they can bring up all sorts of memories for abuse survivors, and which then can be traumatizing. And then if you can't get a hold of your therapist, if you're seeing a therapist or whatever, it can be horrible, right? So just know where you're at in your healing journey and how you are today, and whether or not you should be listening to this or not. And do a safety check. I always tell people that in the beginning because it's so important, right? So we're going to look at, we were talking about what are the adult repercussions of child abuse, page 47 of the Survivor to Thriver manual. And we went through relationship problems. We already did that earlier this week. And we went through low self-esteem. They look at self-sabotage and sexual problems. And next up is symptoms of trauma. So that's what we're looking at. And I'm just reading right from the Survivor to Thriver manual. So they allow you to use it. You can use it, and I'm sure they don't mind me doing this as long as I don't change the wording and say that I wrote it, and or monetize it, right? And I don't monetize my videos, so I'm not making money off of this. So I don't think that they would mind us using this and looking at it and going through it. So this is page 55, symptoms of trauma. And they say psychic trauma is a psychological condition caused by overwhelming stress that cannot be controlled by normal coping mechanisms. It can result from a number of situations in addition to child abuse, including war or battlefront experience, natural disasters, being held hostage, and being in the middle of bombing, hijacking, or shootout. Perhaps the most common symptom of such traumatic exposure is panic attacks involving hyperventilation and severe anxiety. And these can be triggered by anything your senses associate with your past abuse. Insomnia, sleepwalking, nightmares, night terrors, a more extreme type of nightmare occurring during non-sleeping or non-dreaming sleep cycles, or other signs of unresolved trauma of some sort. So it's it's hard to deal with, that's for sure. And a lot of survivors have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's the same as it's the same PTSD that war veterans coming back from military, situations where they were involved in military battles and stuff like that will experience. It's the same thing. It's just as hard it's abuse survivors kind of it's like being in a war, right? It's sort of the same impact on someone who's being abused, right? So it's really hard to deal with this stuff. I know many people who see psychotherapists and who have all sorts of problems. Myself, I've been able to do this without a therapist. So I'm actually not too bad. Um, like I said, I had a lot to work on because I grew up in abuse. It wasn't like I was treated well for a few years, then abused for a year, and then treated well for so many years after that. I just grew up in abuse, and that's just the way it was. So I had a lot of work to do to change a lot of behavior stuff that I was doing. It was self-sabotaging and just change the way I felt about myself and stuff like that. So I was able to do that through, self-help and group support, stuff like that. And one program that I did use with a friend of mine, I talk about it, is My Envision Mind. And that is actually a sort of a psychological psychotherapy type thing. But a friend of mine did that for me. So that's the thing. Not everybody's got a psychotherapist friend. So that's the issue. That was really awesome for her to do that for me. And so, I'm not in treatment or anything, but I know lots of people that are, and there's no shame in it. Honestly, there's not. Um, it's whatever helps us to have a better life, right? That's that's good, right? So there's no shame in any of this. Many adult survivors don't show signs of psychic trauma until years after the abuse ends. And when they do show signs, survivors often report feelings of extreme anxiety, panic, general fearfulness, and disorientation. In the most extreme cases, survivors may evidence dissociation, splitting of mind and body, numbing of the body, and intrusive repetitive thoughts and flashbacks to the abuse episodes. The appearance of these symptoms lets you know that your psyche is still trying to resolve conflicts associated with your past abuse. And there is growing evidence that survivors of extreme and prolonged child abuse are susceptible to developing multiple personalities as a means of self-protection, and that child abuse may be the major cause of multiple personality disorders. And that's just it. I mean, I don't think that I have that issue. I think I may have disassociated certain, especially during the CSA child sexual abuse, but I don't miss time. So that's how I can kind of tell. People I know have talked to people who are multiple, and they have multiple personalities, and they will tell me, they'll say like, well, I actually, while my other personality it takes over, I lose track of time. And that'd be like the timekeeper, the one who's actually in the present. Um, they lose chunks of their day because someone else, another personality takes over. So then while that personality is taking over, the other one doesn't know what's happening. So it's very interesting. I know people who are multiple, and so it's the brain is capable of doing all sorts of things to protect us. So I don't think I have multiple personality disorder. I think that I did, like my friend thinks that I did dissociate as a child being sexually abused, and I may have, but I don't really know because I didn't lose track of time, and so it's just interesting. I don't really know, but it does happen, and it's not uncommon. He said, when any signs of trauma are noticed, the best suggestion is to get immediate help. Turn to members of your support network, trusted family and friends, and your therapist if you have one. If you experience any of the more severe trauma symptoms, such as disassociation, we strongly encourage you to seek professional help. He said, if you feel totally unable to function, you may need medication or hospitalization to control the anxiety. And the goal during this time is to make sure you are safe and protected and to minimize the possibility of hurting yourself. That's right. And, that's just the issue. Adult survivors of child abuse then are, basically continue to live a horrible life as adults if they don't get help. If it's stuff that's so severe that, for instance, panic attacks, anxiety issues, depression, whatever these things are, if we don't get help with them, for instance, I'm talking to myself or about myself, then I'm just going to have a miserable adult life. And that's sad because growing up abused, I think that's hard enough, for a person to have to deal with. And then to have this horrible adult life too, that just doesn't seem very fair. It doesn't seem right. It seems that there should be healing and there should be somewhat of a decent life, you know. for people who have already come through a really horrible situation, right? No matter what the abuse was, right? It doesn't matter. We shouldn't be letting ourselves go down, in other words, because of what happened to us as children. But that's just sad, you know what I mean? And that's what I was doing. So that's why I'm doing these shows, for people who just for one honest look, right? So then they asked questions about this particular section. This was symptoms of trauma. And these questions I did answer when I first did this book. And it says 61, question 61, do you have frequent panic attacks? 62, do you have trouble sleeping or experience terrifying nightmares or sleepwalking? 63, do you have sudden flashbacks of images or thoughts that are connected to the abuse? 64, do you sometimes feel like you are somebody else? And 65, do you have partial amnesia or blackouts? 66, do you fantasize a lot or feel disconnected from your body? 67, do you have overwhelming anxiety that seems connected to a particular situation or stage of your life? 68, do you have trouble concentrating or remembering? 69, do you have periods of overwhelming grief or terror? 70, do you often feel agitated and ill at ease? And, when I answered these originally, I was dealing with a lot more than I am now, because I've come so much, come so far in my healing journey. So, I mean, my answers would be different today than when I first started this a long time ago, back in 2009, 2010. So that's a long time ago. Like I said, I'm still working on some things, but I'm in a lot better place than I used to be, because when I answered this originally, it was, do you have frequent panic attacks? I would say not so much panic attacks, more anxiety for me. Do you have trouble sleeping or experience terrifying nightmares or sleepwalking? I actually used to have horrible nightmares about the abuse, and wake up just crying and screaming and, terrible. And I've always had trouble sleeping because I couldn't sleep well as a child, growing up abused and my parents fighting all the time, and then the sexual abuse and stuff, the CSA child sexual abuse, incest that I suffered. I never slept well. And then when I got a little bit older, especially in my 20s, was doing a lot of drugs, just trying to stay awake all the time. And, I've never slept well. And there have been times where I've actually had, periods of time where I've had a little bit of good sleep, but it's very rare. And I still can't get a good sleep. It doesn't matter what I do. Sleep is a problem for me. Do you have sudden flashbacks of images or thoughts that are connected to the abuse? When I first answered this was a definite yes, because I was having huge problems with flashbacks, intrusive flashbacks. So I'd be sitting at work and all of a sudden I was really at work. It was almost like dissociating, right? I was all of a sudden being abused. And so that used to happen. Now it doesn't happen. I have memories, like I was talking on a show earlier this week. I still have lots of memories. Of course, all my memories are intact. But the thing is they don't come at me obtrusively. I can actually put them away in the past where they belong when I need to. So yeah, I don't have that issue going on anymore. And I think it's because I've allowed myself to work through a lot of this stuff. So it says, do you sometimes feel like you are somebody else? I think when I was a little kid, I think I sort of did. I sort of had this idea that I was possibly somebody else. I think that's the dissociation. That's why my friend thinks that I might have dissociated as a child after the CSA child sexual abuse while that was going on. Now, no, definitely not. I just feel like me. I'm stuck with me. It's like, oh no, what a drag. But it is what it is. I have to face the facts every morning when I wake up in the morning. I'm like, oh yes, it's me. No, I don't feel like I'm a different person at all now. I think when I was younger, I was probably wishing that I was a different person, because I was probably wishing that I wasn't living in the abuse that I was living in. So that's probably why. Says, do you have partial amnesia or blackouts? No, I don't have. I've never actually had any problem with that. My sister actually has problems with that, and she's 5.5 years older than me. She still has issues with that. Not blackouts, but definitely partial amnesia. I would say almost all amnesia. She almost doesn't know who she is. You know what I mean? She doesn't really have a clue who she is. She's just living life. And she's actually a really nice person. And she actually looks a lot like me. We both look a lot alike. So if you met her, we have the same personality and the exact same voice. We're not twins. It's just that we look very close. We actually look a lot alike and we sound a lot alike. So we're in the same room, we have the same voice and we talk the same way. So people, it's kind of weird for people because it's like stereo in stereo. That's she talks like I do. I talk like she does. You wouldn't almost be able to tell us apart. But we're not twins. 5.5 years different in age. But she doesn't have a clue who she is. Really, she doesn't. But she gets along well in life. That because I think that's why. Because she doesn't remember the abuse. She doesn't want to. She gets along just doing her thing. But then at the end of the day, she's sitting on the floor in the living room, drinking and rocking back and forth and crying, but she doesn't know why. And so she's a haunted soul, absolutely. But in the daytime, she's just like she was doing exactly what I was doing. She in the daytime, she's fine. She goes to work. She's kind of the life of the party. Everybody likes her. She's friendly. She's funny, and she's a nice lady. Um, but she's really messed up. And I don't think she's suicidal like I was. So I don't think she gets to that suicidal point. But she definitely has issues and problems. And she does. She wanted to be on a healing journey when especially when I was writing One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the journey, that book about the CSA child sexual abuse. She was talking to me and she said, I wish I could be on my healing journey, because she saw what I was doing, and we were talking, and I said, you could be on your healing journey. You could start one anytime. I said, when you're ready, you probably will, But we don't speak because we're too toxic together. We just want to kind of rip each other to shreds. And I can't handle that stuff anymore. I can't be around that anymore. It's too hard on me. It's too hard on my mind. It's too hard on my body. It's just too hard on me as a person to have to get back into that toxic garbage stuff. I just can't do it. I'm on my healing journey, man, and I want to have a good life, and I don't want to scream and yell and holler and fight, and that's basically what she's still doing. So I'm like, no, I'm done with that. So we can't even talk. Like, we don't talk at all. So it's really sad. They said here, do you fantasize a lot or feel disconnected from your body? No, I definitely don't. But I think when I was a little kid, I think I may have, because I really did feel disconnected from my body, with especially during the CSA child sexual abuse, when that was going on. And that was just my brain protecting myself. I'm sure of it. But I also think that my brother may have drugged me because, and I didn't write about that in the book, but my brother was a junkie, and he was a heroin addict, and he's just doing all sorts of drugs. And he was 21 years old, and he may have drugged me. See? So during the sexual assaults, because I remember, I have clear memories of this stuff, but it's just, they're foggy. And now that I think about it, the memories that I have, I feel almost as if I was drugged. So I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it one bit. My brothers were quite often giving me drugs, especially, pot. I was smoking pot at the age of like 4. Who knows what they gave me, in my food. I have no idea. So, yeah, I kind of think that it could be that situation, or either that, or it was just that I dissociated, and that's why I feel the memories that I have are, I was woozy. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure, but it was the trauma from that, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. It was hard for me to actually accept it. And when I started working on my CSA child sexual abuse healing journey, I knew that was going to be the hardest work I would be doing. And that was incredibly hard. Absolutely. My friend used to call me, like I said, I just was talking about that on a show yesterday, or it might have been the day before, but my friend Kate Mitchell was the psychotherapist lady that helped me out. She used to be a psychotherapist and help survivors of abuse. And she helped me get through this stuff. And she worked with me for about 1.5 years. And she lives in Australia. She would phone me every day to make sure I was okay. And she would check because she knew I was suicidal. So she's like, I used to be suicidal, not anymore. But I think she was worried that I might. And so she was in touch with me all the time, what a good friend. Like, what a good friend. I have some really good friends, and I thank God, because otherwise, I don't think I'd have made it. I really don't. So this is what I'm saying. It's so important to reach out, right? There are good people out there. You just have to find them. And number 67, do you have overwhelming anxiety that seems connected to a particular situation or stage of your life? I do have some anxiety. I'm sure of it. I have anxiety about all sorts of things in life. Doing life for me is a problem. It's like just doing life, like as long as nobody's bothering me and I don't have to do anything. Seriously, like I'm so screwed up that if I get a bill, it's a problem. If I get a phone call, it's a problem. That's how screwed up I am, literally, from the abuse. Like everything is a potential crisis for me. That's why when my husband was alive, he just passed away 2.5 years ago. He was emotionally well. He wasn't abused as a child. He was very sane. He was a nice guy, and he was funny and just a nice guy. And he really loved me. And I'm not one of those people that freaks out if the phone rings. You know what I'm saying? But what it does is, so I'm not that far into the panic, anxiety stuff. But it's still an issue because it's kind of like immediately my inner children, my wounded self, is like that could be a potential problem. What's that thing in the mail? It's like, oh my God, that could be something from, it's almost like a fear. A fear. Everything is like fear based for me, and I'm starting to kind of lighten up as I get older. Because I'm starting to realize like, hey, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a phone call. It's just a piece of mail. Sometimes I went for like a year not reading any mail that came. So I got in a lot of trouble because I didn't read a lot of government stuff. I didn't read, it's kind of like, no, I put in a pile and I'm like, doesn't exist. That pile doesn't exist. I don't even look at it. So then I don't acknowledge it. It doesn't exist. And then I can kind of continue on in my life having a good time because I'm trying to have a good time because I grew up abused. See? So I don't want to deal with that stuff because I'm like, no, I just want to do what I want to do. You know what I mean? Which is not deal with that stuff, right? Of any sort of thing that comes along that I don't want to deal with. So I'm starting to learn, how to do this stuff like at the age of 55. It's like, I can do it. I can handle it. I'm slowly, one step at a time. Now, instead of throwing the mail into a pile, I've decided that it's okay that I read the mail. It's not going to be a crisis. But, I'm talking from government stuff, things that I don't want to deal with, and I look at it now and I'm like, oh, it's just my T4 or whatever. It's my tax stuff, right? It's like, okay, it's not a crisis. All right. So I'm starting to get better as I get older, but it's just not been easy for me. The PTSD and the anxiousness and the problems with anxiety has been a problem all of my life. And, haven't handled things well at all. But I'm getting better, like I said, as I get older. I'm starting to be able to handle this stuff and deal with it. And I say, do you have trouble concentrating or remembering? That's not a problem for me. I think I've never had a problem with that because I like learning languages and things like that. It takes a lot of concentration to learn language and memorization. That's why my memories are really intact. I have really good memories. I have a good brain for memory system. Even short-term stuff, I'm not bad. Even for my age, I'm pretty good. I don't, because I'm getting old now. It's sort of hard when you get older. Your memory you start forgetting to do stuff, so to write everything down. But my memory's still pretty good, actually. It really is, and I think it's because I use it all the time. I actually exercise it all the time because I like learning. I'm just like learning. I'm weird, I know, and I like learning languages, which is bizarre. Like, who likes learning languages? Well, a few people do. But the thing is I really enjoy it. It's something I love to do, and I love to speak Spanish. So I haven't studied Spanish since the 12th grade, and I still remember all of it. I'm 55. I can still read it, write it, speak it. I can go pick up a Spanish book. There'll be words that I have forgotten, so I have to look up some words. But how to speak it, the syntax of the sentences, it's all still there. All that stuff. I took German. I'm interested in Norse languages, Old English, that aren't spoken anymore. I'm interested in Icelandic and stuff like that. So I'm trying to learn that right now. And because Icelandic is actually the old original English, which is like that old Norse Icelandic language. So I love languages, linguist stuff. I'm into that stuff. I'm just kind of strange. And it helps my memory because I have to keep remembering this stuff. So it's kind of like, okay. I do all sorts of things like that. So I think that's why my memory is not such a problem. My sister has no memory whatsoever. She can't remember anything. She remembers her daughter, thank God. She's got my niece. She doesn't forget her daughter, and she doesn't forget stuff about her daughter. So when she says she can't remember anything, she's talking about the abuse. She's talking about our lives growing up. She doesn't remember anything, and she does. She was 5.5 years older than me. See, when my brother was killed, he was 19. I was just turning 7, and he was murdered. You know, they actually closed it a cold case. Then they said no, it's probably an accident, but it was a cold case for a while. And my sister was 5.5 years older than me, so she would have been 12 and a half. She doesn't remember any of it. Nothing. She's like, well, what was I doing? And I'm like, well, you were running around with the Bible, because it was bizarre. I really don't even talk about this situation. But the night that my brother was killed, he was at a party with one of my other brothers. I wrote about it in my book, A Life of Death Redemption. But what I didn't write about was the fact that me and my sister were getting ready for bed. And we were still young. Like I said, I was just turning 7. She was 12 and a half. And we heard his voice outside of our bedroom window saying, Mom, Mom. And we knew it was Chas. We knew it was my brother Chas. So we jumped up and we were like, that's Chas. And we looked out and he wasn't there. So we were like, well, what do we do? My sister was like, I don't know, let's get the Bible. So my sister grabbed the Bible. I didn't know anything about the Bible. I was like, whatever. But I was like, okay, because I was going along with it. And she's like, let's pray, let's pray. So we did, but he was murdered that night, or he was killed. And she doesn't remember any of that. And what's weird is we actually used to talk about this stuff when we were younger. And she remembered it then, but now she doesn't. So she's completely blocked out the whole thing. She just remembers that my mom made really good cookies. That's the only thing she'll talk about. Oh, Mom made really good cookies. Like, well, she did. She also beat me to death, half to death. My mom made really good cookies, but she was a horrible woman. So she just only remembers really what she wants to remember, and I don't blame her at all, actually. If that's how she has to deal and get through, that's okay. 69, do you have periods of overwhelming grief or terror? I've always had that problem. 70, do you often feel agitated and ill at ease? I used to have more problem with that, not so much anymore. Because like I said, I've done so much work on the healing journey, I'm actually starting to enjoy life, which is amazing. And but so many people still deal with a lot of this stuff, and to varying degrees, right? Some people do mild sort of stuff, I say I'm somewhere in the middle. And then I know other people who are severely traumatized and have issues with this stuff that are so severe. I have a friend who's Carol Levine. Carol Levine, she's an author, and she grew up abused. We're friends. We're good friends, actually. I call her my sister, too. She's my sweet sister, Carol Levine. She's awesome. She fights to stop and prevent child abuse as well. And I volunteered with her at NASCA. And she was one of, I don't know, 19 or 20 girls that this guy picked up and raped. Not all together, like he would single them out, and over a period of like however many months, picked up all these young girls between the ages of 7 and 8 or 9, somewhere in there, and raped them. And she was one of them. So she had to go to court to identify him and everything. And when she was young, but she was abused before that, abused sexually and in every other way. And then had that happen to her. She had a lot of panic attacks and anxiety. So she wrote a book about her story. You can buy it, and it's called Panic Attack. Oh, I'd have to get it. I have to look it up. But it's Carol Levine. That's her name. And if you're interested in looking, she actually sent me that book, but then a friend of mine wanted to read it and never gave it back. So I'm like, oh well, that's okay. It was kind of sad, but it's like, oh well. If I want to read it again, I'll have to buy it. But that's her name, and she wrote a book about her life and about the situation that she's gone through, which caused her a lot of panic attacks, literal panic attack, real panic attacks where she couldn't do anything without panicking, right? Severe panic. Right? So that can be a real problem. So she talks a lot about that stuff, and she's awesome. Next up is physical ailments. So adult survivors of physical and sexual abuse frequently complain of a host of illnesses and psychosomatic problems during their adult lives. The most common generalized effects include stomach problems, difficulty in breathing, muscular tension and pain, migraine headaches, incontinence, and heightened susceptibility to illness and infection. In addition, skin disorders, back pain, ulcers, and asthma are common ailments that are stress-related and may signify unresolved childhood abuse issues. In cases of sexual abuse, they name all this, the body parts can be all, I'm not going to go through that. It's all very adult material. Maybe the site of discomfort, chronic pain, otherwise unsubstantiated sensations. If the, well, they go on to talk about this. Like, you can read this. This is page 57. It's very, very adult material, so I'm not going to read this here. But it says, again, we remind you that any or all of these problems may be caused by non-abuse related factors or conditions as well. So they always say that because, not everything, if a person has those symptoms or is experiencing that stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've been abused, you know what I mean? But it's just that most people that know that would be reading this manual, Survivor to Thriver, for the purpose of healing from child abuse, would know they were abused. So that's just it. But I think they put that in there as basically kind of like a disclaimer. It's like, hi, Jersey Girl Forever. How are you? I hope your day's going good. And it's 9:30 in the morning here. I'm just trying to wake up still a little bit. I'm drinking coffee, trying to wake up. So this is just the issue of physical ailments. And I've talked, actually, I didn't used to talk so much about the physical stuff, but I did a video on it. And I got a lot of comments on it. Because Facebook, actually, not Facebook, Ustream featured that video. They picked 2 of my videos and featured them. And those were the 2 videos I wouldn't have featured. That's the 2 I wouldn't have featured, because those were, one was about the CSA child sexual abuse, and I was very, that was hard for me to do that video. And also because I was putting myself back there kind of in that place. And also the one where I was talking about the physical abuse, the damage done, just pointing out, the stuff that I've suffered. Those are the videos I wouldn't have put out there to feature, but they did. They featured those 2. So it's kind of like, oh no, because that one about the physical abuse, that one actually was a rebuttal against somebody who knew, who was a best friend of my brother who raped me. And he actually found me. He contacted me. He doesn't live in my city or anything. He found me online, and he contacted me. He was like, "Wow, can't believe what you're doing. Look what you're doing." And he says, "I didn't know that stuff was going on in here when you were growing up." But he was young. He was like probably 18 years old or something. He was just a teenager, and he was always high. All my brothers were doing drugs. All their friends were doing drugs. He wasn't really paying attention to the family situation. I was just this little girl running around. You know what I mean? He wasn't really looking in on the situation. He just used to come over and hang out with my brother. And he said, "I'm not surprised about what you said about Rob raping you and sexually assaulting you." He said, because that was his best friend. He said, because he was really messed up. I said, "Yeah, no shit." Yeah, no kidding. He really was. And he said he was on heroin and all sorts of drugs. Like, maybe he drugged you too. I was like, that's what made me think. I'm like, you just never know. I have a lot of strange memories of my brother's friends in the room with me too. So I'm not sure if I was raped by other people or not. I'm not even going to try to, I don't even know, you know what I mean? It's a possibility that my brother was not pimping me out, but just kind of like letting his friends kind of do whatever. So I think I was drugged, to be honest with you. But it's really sad. So he was talking to me about this stuff, this guy. And I remember him from them days. And he said to me, he says, "So you just keep talking about it and all this stuff." And he says, maybe you've just told yourself this stuff over and over again so you actually believe it. And I couldn't believe that he said that. I've actually heard other people say it to me too. And I'm like, you want to say that to my face in person? Come stand before me and say that? I wouldn't do that if I was here. I'm actually quite big and strong, and nobody's going to tell me that to my face. Are you kidding? Oh my God. I couldn't believe it. I was so angry. I cut him off. I blocked him from everything. I actually told him off. And I said, don't ever contact me again. I don't want contact with you. Don't ever bother me again. And I was just so hurt by that because why should I care? He's just a friend of my rapist brother. You know what I mean? But the thing is that I thought, that is ridiculous. The reason I did a lot of, when I was doing one child abuse survivor to another and child abuse prevention stuff on Blog Talk Radio, it was a weekly running thing I was doing, and people were actually tuning into that stuff. I had all just had people like you guys sitting here with me. It was a blog talk um, radio show. It was audio, but I still had people in chat room and all sorts of survivors and stuff would join me. And this was a long time ago, like I said, 2009, 2010, or in there 2011. And I didn't repeat just the same thing over and over, but I was making certain points about certain things, just like I'm doing here. And the thing is, a lot of stuff I do repeat on my shows, and especially the stuff about, don't allow yourself to be abused and stuff, because I never know if someone's just going to watch one video and then never watch another one. And so my main point is for people to not give up and to not allow people to continue to abuse you, to not allow people to treat you like crap, to get help, like this sort of thing. Because, you never know when somebody's just going to watch one video and then never watch another one, you know? So my main message was for adult survivors of child abuse was that you didn't deserve that. And there's always going to be somebody come along and say, are you just making that up? Did it really happen? Where's the proof? You know, and it makes me so angry. It really does. And we don't deserve to be shit on again by naysayers. I actually don't pay any attention to them anymore. But the thing is um, that really bothered me. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I cut him off and I did that video. And I was pissed off in that video, as everybody could tell. And I was like, even cursing a little bit because I'm like, you know what? This is not a joke. And for some people, they don't even have any validation whatsoever. And that's heartbreaking because then they're abusers or whoever the family unit is, friends of the family, whatever, these people would say, oh, it never happened. You're just dreaming. You're just making that up. I've heard this stuff from survivors. I've seen it written in books. It's actually quite common, gaslighting. People will gaslight survivors of abuse because they'll be like, oh, it wasn't that bad, or it never even happened. You must have been dreaming, right? And that's just a form of denial. And it's also a way to try and shut down the abuse victim, right? So that's why I keep speaking out that's why I just keep doing this, because I'm like, I'm not shutting up just because some people don't like what I'm doing and like what I'm saying. I don't care. I'm trying to be a voice out here for people who don't have a voice, whose lives have been taken or they killed themselves. I'm trying to be a voice for those children who were killed and murdered by their abusers. I'm trying to be a voice for those children who are laying out in the desert somewhere because somebody got a hold of them and raped them and dumped them out in the desert. I'm trying to be a voice for those kids that are still in child sex trafficking rings. You know what I mean? So like this guy, I mean, he just pissed me off. I was like, so I did that video and I was talking about the physical abuse and stuff. And I mean, I had that car accident that I had. They did all head to toe X-rays and stuff like that because they were looking for internal injuries and all sorts of things. And they were like, you're messed up. You're only like not even barely 18. And the amount of damage that you have in your body is just unbelievable. And they were like, it's abuse. It's either abuse or that you were really clumsy as a child. Which one is it? Because I've got all kinds of head damage, cranial damage and stuff. Just from being slammed into walls and just beaten on, with heavy, clubs. And I'll call it a club, but it was a rolling pin my mom used. But the thing is and also table legs and stuff like that. So I just told the doctor, I was like, well, I guess maybe a little of both. But the thing, I was so embarrassed. I was absolutely embarrassed. And they were like, well, you're 18, you can press charges if you want to, or whatever. But we're going to record what's here. But the thing is, it's up to you to press charges. But they did tell my parents off. That one doctor told my parents off. Because my parents had to come get me from the hospital because I was really messed up from this car accident. And he told them off, and he came talk to me, and he was like almost like a caring father when he was talking to this surgeon of mine, and he was like, you need to straighten up. He said, you need to get off the drugs, because they knew I was using drugs and stuff. They could tell with the blood work and all that, and they were like, you need to get off the drugs, straighten up your life, And he said, you just took, I don't know, 20 years off your life, somewhere around there, just from this car accident. He said, but the damage that was done to you before, that never should have happened. And he said, I've already talked to your parents and I told them they should have done a better job looking after you. And, he said, you need to care about yourself. He was talking to me and I appreciated it. I did. I didn't change my ways or anything for a long time after that. It took me another 4 years to decide to have a better life. But the thing is I've got validation, see, and I also have the gynecology report because I went to see a gynecologist because um, and I've even had people make funny comments to me about this whole guy. Why would you go to the gynecologist because you want to get on the pill? Well, it's because this guy that I was seeing was 7 years older than me, and we knew that we were in love. He was coming from Canada down to New Mexico, and I was really quite sure that he was the one, and I was like, I love this guy. He said, well, let's get a gynecology checkup to make so that we're not just make sure we don't have any kind of STDs or anything like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I've never had one anyway, so I'll go. But I put on the clipboard that I was a virgin. I'd never had any sexual intercourse with anybody. And they were like, and they did the test. And that gynecologist was like, well, you've written here you're a virgin on the clipboard. You've never had any sexual intercourse with anybody. And I was like, that's right. And she goes, well, you can keep telling people that all you want to, but we saw what's happened to you, and you were sexually abused as a child. And the scar tissue is there. We know it's horrible, and you may or may not ever be able to carry a child. If you ever can become pregnant, that'd be a miracle. So they said you can get on a pill if you want to, but seriously, we don't see how you're going to be able to get pregnant. And they said, you could press charges. You're like 20 years old, whatever. I was like, yeah, I could, but my brother just killed himself. He's the one who did it. And she was just like, oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, well, that's just my life. So, and then I went home and I just bawled my face off because I didn't want to face this child sexual abuse stuff. See, I just didn't want to deal with it. I just put it in a drawer and I put it away again. And, I was doing drugs at that time anyway. So I was just getting, no, actually I was just getting off the drugs. That's right. I was just getting off the drugs. That's right. So the issue is I think I was still smoking pot at the time. The thing is like I've got validation. And my parents were brought up on child abuse charges. That's in the court records. I mean, that's, they were busted and arrested for child abuse. So I don't have to worry about naysayers and punks like that who come along, who were friends of my rapist brother, who want to say, maybe you're just making it up. It's like, no, everybody knew. Friends of the family that I've talked to were like, yeah, your parents were really messed up. But we love them anyway. And I'm like, yeah, I know I love my parents too, but what they did was wrong, you know? And so it's just so, my heart goes out to the people who have no validation and then they've got a family or a set of abusive people in their life who want to sit there and say that it never happened or they're just making it up or they're just dreaming or wasn't that bad. Get over it. And that's not right. That is just not right. So that's why I keep doing what I'm doing. Because it's like, no, they're not going to shut me up. I'm going to keep talking and I don't care. And, it's unbelievable that people think this stuff is okay. In doing this, my friends, I've actually had a few people that I know, I'm not naming names here or anything because they want this kept very quiet and very, very, I would never give somebody's name away for stuff like that. But after friends of the family that I knew while I was growing up, some of them didn't like what I was doing here, and especially the ones that liked my mom. And they were like, how dare you? How could you? I'm like, I'm just telling the truth, man. It's like, that's all I'm doing. But their daughter actually came to talk to me. And then she was like, well, I'm glad you're doing this and I'm glad you're getting help, because I believe you. And we knew there was problems in your family, right? We knew what was going on because they saw the bruises on my face. They saw the welts and the scratches, and I was not, treated right by my mother. They knew this. The adults in this situation. Now the daughters that were playing with me didn't know. They didn't even realize I probably was being abused. You know what I mean? They were younger than me. They were just, probably oblivious, right? But the thing is, she came to me later after I wrote my books and stuff, got a hold of me. And she's like, my dad sexually abused me. I knew her dad. He used to hang around at their house. See, I had no idea he was sexually abusing her and her sister. And they confronted him about it. And they didn't tell their mother because they knew it would break their mother's heart. So they just told their dad what they wanted to say to him. And they were older. they're like in their, what are they now? They're probably in their 40s, right? But the thing is they did confront their dad years ago, and but they never told their mother, and she's passed away now. But the thing is like this stuff happens, see, and there's a whole world that wants to just say, oh, just get over it, or oh, it didn't happen, or oh, you're just making it up, you know, or it wasn't really that bad, was it? Can't you just get over it? All this stuff, and that's why I did that video, because I'm like, look, enough is enough. But also, that's also why I keep doing this, and and I'll always do this. I'll always speak out somehow, some way, even if I don't, do as much. I hadn't done any broadcasting for a while because I was very sick with skin cancer and high blood pressure and all that, right? And I just wasn't feeling well. And I lost my husband like a couple of years ago, so I was in a bit of a funk, and I just didn't feel like doing. I did a few videos, through the year, but not much. And then just recently I started to feel better. And I'm like, okay, I'll get back at it. I'm going to pick up where I left off, which was doing this and also survivor groups and stuff, right? I'm like, all right, I'll get back into it. And I like it, and I'm happy because I get to continue on my healing journey. See, makes me feel better. So, if you're listening to this and you have people around you telling you anything about, negatory about what you've been through, do not let that affect you in a way that's going to cause you to hurt yourself more than you already have been damaged. You know what I'm saying? And also get some help. So it seems like the more support you have around you of people who understand where you've been, the better off you are. And that's a fact, because I've got tons and tons of people, of survivor friends who I've known for a long time now, since 2009 when I started reaching out. And, these people help me to keep going, right? Because they know where I've been, they know where I'm coming from. And so, I don't have to listen to the naysayers. I can go talk to my friends who affirm me and who acknowledge me and acknowledge what I've been through, you know? And so, that's why I'm saying it's so important to reach out and not suffer on your own, right? And if you have, like some people, obviously I'm just doing this public, but, lots of people would never do that. They'd just rather go to a counselor, one-on-one therapy or something like that. And I mean, whatever you do, that's cool. But I'm just saying, don't suffer on your own in silence, being silent, and, so many times survivors actually have to be silent about the abuse because if they say anything, their life will be in danger. Well, that's a fact. My abusers are dead. So I don't care. It's like, whatever. And I started speaking out this before my dad even passed away. So, and he knew what I was doing. And he didn't like it. He didn't think it was very cool that I was blowing the whistle on him and my mom and my brother, but he said he didn't know anything about my brother raping me. So, and I'm actually sure he didn't. He was pretty oblivious to everything. He wasn't paying any attention to what his kids were going through. His brothers were on drugs. His sons were on drugs. His wife was really, really sick, and he's just doing his thing. You know what I mean? So he wasn't paying much attention to what was going on with the children. So I'm actually not surprised that he didn't know. And but he did nothing to stop my mom from abusing me, and he was one of my abusers. So I handed him the book, A Life of Death Redemption. I'm like, there it is. It's all there in the book. You can read it. It's out there now. It's all over the place. I'm like, and I just want you to have a copy so you'll know what I wrote is absolutely true. And he was like, he didn't want to read it. He just handed it back to me, and he's like, I don't see why you had to go and do something like that. I'm like, because truth is truth. That's why. you know, you hurt me. And I said, you didn't even stop mom from hurting me, and you knew what she was doing to me. Right? And I said, and you didn't probably know what your son did to me. Right? I'm sure you didn't. You probably didn't realize and probably didn't have a clue that your son Rob raped me for almost a year, sexually abused me, caused me a lot of damage. And I said, I got nothing from you, no apology, no, I really love you, I care about, no, he didn't love his children. He's a very mentally ill man. So I didn't want to hurt him, but I did want him to know I wrote that book, and I gave him a copy, so I wasn't hiding anything, you know what I'm saying? I just gave it to him. I'm like, there you go, you can read it, it's all true, And, if my mom was around, I would have done the same thing. And if my brother was still alive, I would have done the same thing. They were long past, right? So my abusers are dead, so that's good. that's fine, whatever. But some people can't speak out about this stuff, right? So that's kind of another reason why I do these shows, for people that have no one in their life that understands where they've been or has a clue of the hardships that they've endured, and how hard it is to get through life after coming through that stuff, right? And so that's another reason. It's just to be a support, right? So it's also helpful for me, helps me on my healing journey, but it also, I like to be out here for people who don't have anybody that they can trust to talk to. You know what I mean? So at least they know that they can hear from me and they'd be like, oh, she understands. You know what I mean? Because I do. It's ridiculous. This is really a mess. So they get into, on page 57 of the Survivor Manual, not looking at physical ailments, they get into a whole lot of really sexual type stuff, and it's really adult material. So you can read it yourself, 57 of Survivor Manual. And it's just a bit much. Some of this they're talking about is food like issues, anorexia, eating disorders, bulimia, things like that. And they talk about that sort of stuff. They say, depending on one's childhood experience and type of personality, illness can have different meanings for the survivor. Being sick can offer an opportunity to be taken care of either by yourself or someone else. For some survivors, the best care they've ever received from their parents may have been when they were sick. Being sick may be one of the few instances in which survivors will care for themselves. In many cases, however, illness may be the body's message that all is not well emotionally. And when strong feelings are repressed, the unexpressed psychic energy can cross the mind-body threshold and establish its presence in the form of bodily symptoms and illness. So that's just sad, and a lot of my problems are from the abuse, absolutely, and it's just from the physical damage of it. Some of it is probably the psychosomatic stuff, just from the anxiety and the PTSD and never sleeping well and never taking care of myself until recently. I'm starting to try, right? It's like I'm trying every day. I'm trying. Still, I still have a lot of work to do. But the thing is I figure as long as we're trying, that's really what counts, right? It's like, okay, get up every day. I don't always do what I need to do exactly perfectly because I'm not perfect, and I'm not expecting myself to be perfect. Some days I just don't have it in me to do it, and I'm like, well, and other days I'm like, I don't care. I'm not exercising. I'm going to eat that pizza because I really like pizza and I'm going to have it. You know what I mean? I'm going to enjoy every bit of it. And it's like, I just don't get so hung up on being a health nut. I'm not a health nut. I can't be a health nut. I enjoy too many of the things that are totally not good for you. Sugar, caffeine, nicotine. I was talking about that on my show last night, my biblical show. And just because I'm looking at breaking physical habits, right? But I love cake, cookies, stuff like that. There's no way I'm gonna give that stuff up and start eating, garbanzo beans and things like that. Like, I do like healthy food if I can get a hold of it. It's actually really expensive to eat healthy. And people say, oh, no, it's not. Once you have all the ingredients, it's not expensive. It is much more expensive to eat healthy than it is to eat cheap. I generally eat in average. I don't have totally healthy food around all the time, but I also don't have total junk food. I incorporate some good stuff in there. And I seriously think that's what it's all about. You don't have, a lot of people like to be, because it's not that they worship their bodies or something. Maybe some people do. But I think what it is there's a lot of people that makes them feel good. It's not about the look. It's not about looking good. It's about feeling good and getting rid of the toxins out of the body. And, that sounds like a good plan to me too. It's just that I'm not giving up sugar. So therefore it's not going to work. I like sugar in my coffee. That's all there is to it. I'm not going to give my coffee up until I absolutely have to. So, even decaf, I don't care. I'm putting sugar in there. So I can't be a total health nut. For me, it's not for me. But I know people who are right into health and wellness. And, I'm happy for them. Whatever makes you happy, that's the issue. At the end of the day, for me, it's having a piece of pizza. I really like pizza. I don't eat it very often because it's very, very fattening, and I like good pizza. You know what I mean? So, well, I'll eat this stuff in cardboard boxes too. I don't care. Like whatever, pizza's pizza. I love pizza. Right? My husband used to laugh at me actually. He'd be like, "You and your pizza, man," and I'd be like, "I know, I just love pizza." And he's like, "Well, I like pizza, but it wasn't his favorite thing. For me, pizza's like be all and end all of everything. If I could just have my pizza, I'm all good. Especially on Friday night, which I don't have pizza for tonight, but whatever. The thing is I'm not a health nut, and so I don't take all that great care of myself. But I try, and I think that's the key. It's kind of like I'm trying to get better sleep, trying to get more sleep. I bought some really great earplugs because it's so not soundproof in here. I can hear the people next door sneezing, so I can hear everything else too. You know what I mean? And all of these people around here, we can all hear each other. It's like, so every conversation, every noise, there's no soundproofing in this place. If it was there, it probably disintegrated years ago because it's an old building. And so I never get a good sleep ever. So I bought some earplugs, really good ones. They were only $3.99, but they really work. And they're silicone and they fit to your ear and they stay in, not like those rubbery ones that just pop out. These things actually sit in your ear and they stay there and they're very comfortable. So last night was the first time I used them and I actually did have a better sleep for the first time in I don't know how long. I don't know, 5 years. Seriously, yeah. So I think if those earplugs are going to help me feel better because I'll finally get some sleep. And what else? I'm trying to do little things like that. Get a little more sleep. Drink a little less coffee. That I am working. I've actually been on doing that for a while now, cutting back on the coffee. I used to drink like a 12-cup pot every day, just me. And now I'm down to 3 cups, which is a lot better because I put tons of sugar in my coffee, right? So I've cut down on a lot of things like that. But I'm not giving up my pizza. Like, no way, man. It's like, so see what I mean? It's kind of like whatever makes you happy. It's just taking care of ourselves, right? I'm starting to try to feel better. I used to feel so horrible because I was a drug addict, and growing up abused, and then, I was already feeling horrible as a child. I was sick, you know what I mean, from the abuse and from the child sexual abuse. And I wasn't being looked after, never taken to the doctor. My parents couldn't take their kids to the doctor. Are you kidding? They were already busted on child abuse charges. The last thing they were going to do is take their kids to the doctor. It's like, okay, so we still see here you're still abusing your kids. It's like, well, so no, we were never taken to the doctor. Not even after my mom cracked my head open and my brother sexually abused me. Like, no, no. So I just treated myself horribly as a teen. Also, I was still being abused, physically abused by my mom as a teenager, and I was also, not looking after myself. So I just never felt good. And in my 20s, I actually started to, I got off the drugs and I joined Tom Young's workout place, got a membership, and started working out, got off the drugs, and I never did quit smoking, but at least I did try to do some things and started to feel a little better. And then as years went by and I had been off of the drugs, because I was doing massive amounts of drugs. So it took a while for my body to start feeling better. I actually did start to feel better, especially around, mid 20s and mid third, like late 20s and into my 30s. So it's just, I've never really done a great job taking care of myself. So I don't feel that well. And I'm getting older now and I don't sleep, like I said. So as long as I can get my sleep situation fixed, that ought to be good. It's these little things we can do for ourselves, one step at a time, right? Not all at once because it's almost impossible to do stuff like that. So they ask questions about this physical ailment stuff. And they say, number 71, question 71, do you have a history of stomach aches or headaches? 72, do you have any eating disorders such as anorexia or bulimia? 73, do you have any loss of bodily functioning that cannot be accounted for by medical reasons? Number 74, do you have any psychosomatic ailments such as skin disorders, asthma, or lower back pain that are not due to physical or systemic causes? And number 75, do you have a susceptibility to infectious illnesses? Number 76, do you have many health-related absences from work? Number 77, do you have constant worries about your health? Number 78, do you have significant fluctuations in your weight? Number 79, do you have foot fatigue and body aches? And 80, do you have negative attitudes about your body? So that's the physical stuff there. And I don't actually get a lot of headaches, which is really amazing because I've had a lot of head trauma. And I sometimes I sit around and I think that maybe that the cracks in my head actually allowed for the pressure to come out because I don't actually get headaches. I'm just like, and I've had a lot of head trauma. Let me tell you, that's why my head is really screwed up. All the whole front here, right around my, it just I've been bashed and beaten in the head. Just and the car accidents didn't help. Let me tell you. So I've had a lot of head trauma, all sorts of things, and to the back, all around. I'm just surprised that I don't have headaches. And as everybody, well, I seriously believe um, that that's God protecting me. I do have some problems because of the trauma to my head and stuff like that. And so I have issues where if I turn my head a certain way, I actually drop whatever's in my hands. So if I'm walking with something, a glass or a cup of coffee or something in my hands, anything, a book, let's just say, whatever, and I'm walking, and if I look to the side, I just drop it. It's just automatic. So that actually was happening when I was driving, right? So I had to be really careful because all of a sudden my hands go limp because I've got all sorts of neck damage and problems with my neck and stuff, and I can't feel my back, at all. I can't feel so in other words, it's that blunt force damage from blunt force trauma. So I can. It's numb. You can pound it all you want to. I would feel it. The nerve damage is just the nerves are just shot there. But there's been a lot of damage. And the thing is I don't worry about most of it. Some of it was car accidents. Some of it was from the abuse, right? Other stuff, I sort of was a little bit crazy when I was young. I used to fall off things. I was on crutches and fell off a mountainside one time. I had to have a friend come down and get me. I seriously used to get myself into all sorts of stuff when I was a teenager, and because I was on crutches for like a year and a half. I was like almost 2 years on crutches. I was in a cast for a year, and as a teen. See, and I still wanted to go out and party and do stuff with all of my friends, right? So I was quite often getting hurt, in that situation. So just a lot of problems. I never did look after myself, like I'm saying. So, but I have had a lot of difficulties with physical stuff. But I don't have like so I know people who have so many like chronic illness because they were abused, and it's just heartbreaking. It really is. Some of my good friends suffer with chronic illness just from the abuse, and it's like I feel bad for them. I really do because I don't necessarily have any of that. I have other stuff, but I don't have a lot of those silent chronic illnesses. And so yeah, my heart goes out to people who are suffering through that stuff. Um, it's just not okay, right? We need to look after ourselves. We need to get help. Like if we're struggling and suffering on, like I said, so important. So we'll look at social alienation. That's the next part. And then after that, what's next? Handling feelings. So that's the next two sections coming up. And if you want to grab this manual, like I said, it's ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and War Center Program, Survivor to Thriver Manual. It's free to use, free to download. You can read it on the web as a web page, I believe. It's www.ascasupport.org. You can grab that for free. And that's where we'll pick up Monday. And tomorrow I'll be on Survivor Weekend Check-In for anybody who wants to come around at 12 noon Mountain Standard Time. And but we'll pick up with this Survivor to Thriver Monday. Same time, same place, 9 o'clock. And I just wish you all the best. I hope you have a good day. Thank you for being here with me, Jersey Girl, forever. And everybody else who's here. And I really appreciate it. Like I said, I do, if I can help you find resources, seriously, get a hold of me. I don't mind. I used to do that stuff with Dream Catchers for Abused Children. I was with them for a while. I was with NASCA for a while, National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. Now I'm with AU4H, Advocates United for Humanity. That's my besties. We call each other. We're sissies. Sissies. I just get, they're goofballs. These women are really funny. They call each other sissies. Right? It's like, oh, sissy, right? So whenever we contacting each other, it's like, hey, sissies. It's like, what are you doing? We're like best friends. But anyway, they're awesome and they love to help people. That's why they do this. They volunteer their time and their energy and everything that they can possibly do to help people. Advocates United for Humanity. So that's who I volunteer with now. And we wanted to do, we actually used to work on stuff together since 2009, Dream Catchers for Abused Children. That's where we met. And we got to go to do this, it was a Paso Robles Film Festival, State and Fate of Children, and we got to be a part of that. So that was a long time ago, back in 2010. We were a lot younger then, but we've been advocating ever since. Well, before that and since. So we still always working on stuff. But now they got a not-for-profit started. I helped them start it, and then I couldn't finish it. I couldn't keep going in it for a while because my husband was so sick and I couldn't deal with it. So if you need resources, that's a great resource as well. So I'm giving a shout out for the not-for-profit that I volunteer for, Advocates United for Humanity. It's AU4H, We Believe. That's what it is. They're on We Believe so that it never goes away. If you have a .com and then somehow it doesn't get paid, say somebody passes away and the account sits there, that's all gone. So they're on We Believe, so the information will stay there forever, right? It's great. So it's www.au4h.webelieve.com. And there's resources and all sorts of info there. And if you need some help, you just contact them and they'll get somebody, including possibly me, somebody to contact you and help you if we can, So that's what I'm saying. If you need resources or help finding resources, just get a hold of me. And you can find my contact info on the About section there. And so I wish you a wonderful day. I really do. Whatever we do today, we just need to make sure that we are good and kind to ourselves and that we don't suffer on our own, don't struggle. I always say this on every show just because it's so important to me, because I was suicidal from 10 to 42 for 32 years. So I just say, if you can't cope, you seriously don't even know how you're going to take another breath, because I've been there. You need to do the right thing and call a crisis line. Because that's what I'm going to do. And I keep telling people that because I promised myself and I promised God that if I ever get down that low again, which I haven't since I was 42, but if it does ever happen again, I'm grabbing that phone and I'm calling a crisis line. I'm sticking it out, and I want you to do the same. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a good weekend, everybody. Talk to you later. Take care of yourselves.